Welcome back. My name is Brandon Clayton, excited to continue through the book of Mark. What do you do when God leaves you in the wind? What do you do when He intends to pass you by during your time of great difficulty? We're going to continue this study in Mark chapter 6. We're going to pick up in verse 46, but I will warn you, this reality has caused many of my friends, many who were close to me, to leave God altogether when they saw, where is God? When they asked, where is God during this tumultuous time of my life? And He didn't show up soon enough. He didn't minister the way they hoped to. This has been a challenging lesson for many people. And as you're going to watch through these scriptures, you'll see why this can be very challenging. If you're watching this video, you're old enough to have felt the pain of not seeing God show up when you wanted Him to, of not seeing Him work the way you wanted Him to. And I think this is incredible as we go forward. I want to leave us with 3 points that we can remember during those times when God leaves us in the wind. Let's look in verse 46. It says, and having sent them away, He went away to the mountain to pray. And when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea. Because they had put Him on the boat. You remember from last lesson, they were on the boat. And He said, go ahead and go before me. The boat was in the middle of the sea, and He was alone on the land. And seeing them straining and rowing, for the wind was against them, at about the 4th watch of the night, He came to them walking on the sea, and He wished to pass them by. And He wished to pass them by. What do you do when God leaves you in the winds of life, intending to pass you by? Look, I'm reminded as I was studying this that with Peter also, I remember in Luke 22, he says to him, Satan desires to sift you like wheat. He already knows what Satan is up to, what his plans are. Watch what he says after that. He says, but when you have strengthened yourself, turn back and strengthen your brothers. When you have turned, go back and strengthen your brothers. Luke 22:31. You know, if I'm thinking about this, I'm saying, if you know he's going to challenge me, then stop it. Don't let him just come up against me and sift me like wheat and challenge, get me to abandon all my faith. You already know it beforehand, and you're going to stand by and say, yes, he's going to do it. And when you get through it, I love that. But I'm not going to stop it, he says. I'm not. It will come. So this principle is still pervasive. He will let you deal with the winds of life. Your financial troubles. He'll let you deal with your winds. Your relationships. Oh, that's a huge one. There's so many one another passages throughout the Bible for this very reason. Ephesians talks about, don't you realize our battle is not against flesh and blood, but the powers of this dark world. Why? Because it's easy to get caught up into thinking, you hurt me. Well, I don't care about this. Say, you the one that did that. You're going to get that. Your wins, and leave you there. Why won't you change this person? Why won't you change this situation? You see how difficult this is for me. You see the affliction that I'm under. Mentally, the turmoil, the stress, physically. Look how bruised and beaten I am because of all that's going on. But he left you there. He leaves you there. And that's enough for anyone to want to throw down a cross and throw down our Bibles and say, that's it. This is not what I signed up for. You're supposed to be here right now, and you left me here. I'm broken by that reality. As he leaves us in our wins, in our challenges, what do? I want to leave us with 3 things that we can remember. I think it's first, importantly, before I get to that, to remember the big picture. Remember that Jeremiah says that he knows the plans he has for us. Plans to prosper us, yes, you know it. Plans to give us a hope and a future. I always wondered why he had to say, I have plans to prosper you, not to harm you. I mean, you're God. You love me. Why would I have to worry about you harming me? Why would I struggle with that? I understand now. I got to remind you that I'm not trying to hurt you. You know, I have a daughter. I have 2 children now and one on the way, actually. And in my training with them, I don't intend to hurt them. But I must let them go through some things. I remember on the playground, my daughter was on the monkey bars and she was ready to get down. She's really good at climbing across. I guess she got tired. But she got tired and she started saying, Daddy, come get me. Come help me down. And I said, no. In the calmest voices I could, just let go. And she started crying there as she's holding on. No, come get me. And after about 30 seconds, she lets go. And she never cried out again because she knew I could just let go. And it's hard for me to watch situations like that, but I know what it's producing. And I know if I intervene then how I will be enabling her for so many years to come. Our Father loves us deeply, and we must remember His plans are to prosper us, not to harm us. We must remember also in Corinthians, we're told, 1 Corinthians 10, that He does not give us more than we can handle. You know, there's times when I feel stressed and I'm like, there's a lot going on. I can't believe I'm being treated like this, or I got a lot going on at school, or whatever the situation is. I remember feeling emotionally burdened to the point where I'm ready to tap out. And I remember this, and this has really saved me. Just to know that I will not give you more than you can handle, because Satan can't intrude in your life without his permission. Everything that we experience has come under the careful watch of our Father. Everything filters through His fingers, so there's no surprises. It gives me so great comfort that God is never surprised by something I'm going through. He's never like, we got to do something. He's like, yeah, I need you to go through that. It hurt. I need you to go through that though. Just trust me here. I can't explain it to you. There's some things I can't explain to my kids. In the biggest general way I can, I say, well, this is just good. I just trust me. But guys, we have to understand we have to get our attitudes right and understand that He has our best in mind. He will not give us more than we can handle either. I think 3 things. The first point here is that we need to remember that He is trying to toughen us. Remember the passages that we like to quote. In James chapter 1, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds. All kinds of trials, he says. I don't care what it is. I don't know what yours is. I know what I feel. I know where my emotions take me. Consider it pure joy. Why should I consider it pure joy? Because you know that your suffering produces perseverance. Oh, and perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. My goodness, how I've often wanted to circumvent that whole suffering and get to the maturity. I want to get to the completeness without going through that ugly road. And I wish that was an isolated passage and I can dismiss it, but it's not. You know it's not. It keeps coming up. And I just want to remind you, as the minister reminded me, that perseverance only begins when you get tired. Yes, when you're about to tap out, when you're saying, I've had it, this is enough, I'm done. Now perseverance is about to start. It doesn't start just when you're getting a little bit of challenge, or you're sitting on the couch drinking your coffee or whatever it is. That's not persevering. I'm just persevering here. No, perseverance is at the moment you start to feel like you want to quit. Now will you persevere. And some of us stay spiritually retarded because we have bucked against that perseverance for years, and we've stayed as a 1-year-old disciple. Although we've been in and around the church and the Bible 10, 15, 20 years or longer, we're still 1 and 2 years old because we refuse to get past the point of, I can't take this. You quit every time. You give in every time. Every time someone makes you mad, you throw your arms up. Every time you get hungry, you say, I quit. Every time you get tired, you say, that's it. And you never persevere, and therefore the process keeps going. Persevere so that it produces something else. You can't get to the producing without the perseverance. Romans says it no differently. He says our suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. There's a process, guys, that we must go through of toughening. Yahweh toughens us through this process of persevering and suffering. We need to embrace that. We talked about in another lesson about the wilderness, embracing that wilderness. Paul saying, train ourselves to be godly. We must be joyful because we know what it produces. We talked about how we go into the rate room and we suffer because we know what it's producing. Guys, we understand this in many other areas. Let's embrace it here. Guys, if you're being left to the winds, it's because he has your best in mind. He wants to toughen you and strengthen you during that time. The second point is it could not only be toughening, but then it's time to test. See, because you never know how tough something is until you test it. I don't have to give a whole lot of examples because you understand this. I could take a branch and say, how tough is it? Well, let's test it. I can't test it by looking at it and letting it blow in the wind. I have to put some pressure on it. And at the point at which it breaks, then I know how tough it is. And we are tested, not tempted, but tested by our Father in heaven to see where we are. I'm sobered. As I look at passages like Deuteronomy 8 and verse 1, Deuteronomy 8, guard to do every command which I command you today, that you may live and shall increase and go in and shall possess the land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that Yahweh your Elohim, God, led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness. In the wilderness? To humble you, to prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. And he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Oh, and you thought it was the devil. You may be very well fighting the hand of God. Why am I hungry? I made you hungry. I want to see what's in you. I want to see, do you really believe in me? Will you really trust in me? Yahshua, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, he was in the desert without food, 40, and he learned even more so to trust him through that tiring, suffering time. I want you to be hungry. Look, I didn't promise you that you was going to be happy and comfortable, but I will prosper you and take care of you. But I need to see where you are. And some of us right now, he's testing you. I know he's testing me. It never stops. And he's not like my mom and dad who's simply going to say, oh, baby, it's okay. Oh, okay, you crying? No, I know what's in you, and I know what you can handle. I'm not going to give you more. So get up, and you won't stop getting this test until you can move on and go from perseverance to producing maturity. It was me, he says. I gave you manna that you never seen before. You know how much you struggle when you have to eat something you've never eaten before? I'll just pass on that. Well, you're going to be hungry. You better learn to eat it and just trust that there's enough nutrients in it and trust that he's going to take care of you through that. What are you going through right now in relationships, at your job, in your emotions, in your spirit, where you're trying to get closer to him, trying to get closer to God? You keep saying, I want to be patient. I want to be more of this and more of that. And he's trying to bring you to there through toughening and through testing to see where you are. I encourage you guys, examine yourselves. Examine yourselves and see where you are. You know, Yahshua, Jesus Christ gave us a way of doing it. He says, look at your fruit. Galatians, he says in verse 5, in chapter 5, says, look at your fruit. Does your fruit align with the fruit of the Spirit? Does your fruit point to a good root? Check out your fruit. But understand that he wants to test you. Peter says it this way. He says the time of testing will come so that your faith may be proved genuine. I'm going to leave you there in the wind. I want to see something. I want to toughen you up. I want to test you. I'm going to leave there, and I intend on walking by. Why? Because I'm not going to give you more than you can handle. If you see him about to walk by, he's saying to you, I know you can get it. I'll see you on the other side. Peter, when you finish, help your brothers. That should encourage you. Thank you. This is tough, but I can see through it. He believes in me. I'm not going to get anything that I can't handle, and I must have it. He's not going to ask of me $1,000 and only giving me 10. He's given me what I needed for this moment. And I remember hearing someone say it so well, God, I know that you trust me and you won't give me more than I can handle, but sometimes I wish you wouldn't trust me so much. Because he gives us up to what we can handle. And I love him for that. And we should praise him for that. The last point is, first is for toughening. Then it's for testing. And then we need to remember to get his attention. You know, we see in 2 Corinthians 1:8, that we got to get his attention. He's trying to get your attention often. And we need to get his attention. It says in verse 8, Paul is speaking, saying, For we do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, of our pressure which came to us in Asia, that we were weighed down exceedingly, beyond ability, so that we despaired even of life. My God, if you didn't get that, read it again. I think he's using every word he can to describe the pain and duress under which he is. Can you relate? Have you ever despaired even of life? Well, Paul says, I got you. I've been there. This is way beyond my ability. You pushed me to my limits. Indeed, we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in Elohim, God, who raises the dead. What was the point of it? He says the point was that I trust not in myself, but God. See, it got to the point where I needed to learn to stop depending on myself. Stop depending on what my plans are and what I can do, or when I'm fed and when I'm rejuvenated and when I feel good. Well, what if I can't? And that's the life we need to be living 100% of the time. I can't do it, and I have to trust you. He says, it forced me back. I got to get his attention. God, Yahweh, please, what are you doing? And live in that state, not just when it's hard, but constantly realizing I cannot do this without you. Our dreams and our passions should be so great that we can't put our arms around it, and it brings us to our knees. If that's not you, you need to re-examine what is your goals? What are your dreams? He's given us too much of a promise of life to the full to just exist. So many people are simply existing and then dying. They're just barely surviving, keeping their heads above water. He says, no, I want you to have life to the full. Let it go and let me take care of it. Stop only doing things that you can see and you can put your arms around. If it makes sense to you, then it's not going to be faith. Oftentimes, it needs to be something so great that you're almost embarrassed to talk about it because it won't make sense without God. Your life shouldn't make sense without God. If it makes that much sense, you re-examine your faith, but it should push us back to him. Look, if we keep reading in Mark chapter 6, verse 49, they got his attention. He would have kept going. It says, and when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a phantom and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. And immediately he spoke to them and said to them, take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid. He was going to pass them by, but they cried out, hey, whoa, what's going on? And he heard their cry. Look, there's going to be time, we need to remember that we could be toughening. Right now, this could be a time of strengthening and toughening us up for what's to come. This could be a time of testing how tough we've gotten. It's all from God. And this could be a time where we need to learn to get his attention and realize I need to rely on him. I need to cry out and say, please, please, I need you. And this cool thing is all three of those things could be done at once. The toughening, and then the testing, and then the crying out. You need to get tougher about being vulnerable and crying out. And he's testing you to see if you will. We got to go all in with this. This is something you can't play around with and say, let me try this out. Let me see how this is going to work. But we have to say, look, I'm going to go all in, even when the winds are against me. I'm going to hold my ground. As a matter of fact, especially when the winds are against me, because everyone does well when the sky's good, when it's not raining. But he wants to know What do you do when life puts the squeeze on you? Because just like a toothpaste, I call it the toothpaste syndrome. Whatever's inside that tube is going to come out. Whatever you put inside you is going to come out. Don't say, oop, I didn't mean to say, I know you didn't, but it's in you. I didn't mean to do that. That just came. Well, now you're being exposed. No, this person or that event didn't make you do anything, but rather things came out from you, from where they are. And so he's going to put that squeeze on you. But the important thing is what we want to see come out is patience, kindness, trust, and faithfulness. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you next week. May God continue to bless you.